Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Storytellers and Ney-Sayers. I decided to go with the name because I'm a storyteller, and one of my friends said that I should have my fan group should be called Ney-Sayers because my last name is Ney, and so I thought I would just marry the two. And so, without further ado, I'm bringing my friend onto my show. We met in St. Augustine, and her name is Debra Weller. Deborah, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I love the idea of naysayers.
Thank you, thank you. Yep, my buddy was like, "Yeah, that's your fan club name." I'm like, "Sure, I don't even have a fan club, but I guess we'll start now." So, indeed. So, Deborah, you've been a storyteller for 43 years, and what made you become a storyteller 43 years ago?
Well, actually, it started before that because I was an extremely naughty little girl and I would frequently get sent to my room. And it was in my room that I began to be a storyteller because I actually loved being sent to my room. And there I played with my dolls, Barbies, made these dramas, made paper dolls, cut them out, and made dramas with them. So storytelling was part of my life. And in ninth grade, my storytelling got me in a lot of trouble because I would draw cartoons in back of ninth grade algebra class and then pass them around the class and everybody would start giggling and I would be sent out in the hall. So,
Oh man.
but I finally found a more socially acceptable version of my storytelling because I became a teacher. And when I had my young daughter, I met another teacher and she said, "Why don't we become storytellers?" And that was 43 years ago in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And there we started the Annie Lynn Storytellers. And we performed together as tandem tellers throughout the New Jersey area in libraries, recreation departments, festivals. And we also performed at the Philadelphia Folk Festival and
Wow,
rode in the van with Arlo Guthrie.
that's amazing. That's so you have a lot of experiences at festivals, I see, and so we're gonna be performing at the Fringe this year, so I'm pretty excited. I'm so glad that you travel a lot and all that good stuff to do festivals, and we'll get to the one in Morocco soon. So
Yes. So
indeed.
yeah,
Oh,
go ahead. I'm so thrilled to. Here's the thing about being a storyteller. People will say, "Well, storyteller, are you just going to go around reading books to people?"
yeah,
And I'm like, "No, you bring a story alive. You get to be all the characters." So it was the gift for me to find this in my life because I could meld my teaching and storytelling and be a storyteller, story teacher, and make storytelling the heart of my curriculum and train children and adults throughout my life to be storytellers.
indeed. That's awesome. I definitely need a lot of work, and I travel everywhere to it's everywhere from Jacksonville to Orlando for like these storytelling rooms, and just to see everyone share their stories is where I learn too. And so uh, and it's pretty cool experience to see different scenes and how they perform and all that good stuff.
What I love about storytelling in the community of storytelling is that there's no one way to tell a story. And each person can be validated in their style and their stage presence and how they create and perform those stories.
Indeed, most definitely. That's why I enjoy your stories. So
Thank you.
indeed. And so you moved from Philadelphia to California, and you taught kindergarten for 31 years. And what part of California did you move to? And
We moved to Mission Viejo, California, which is Southern California between Los Angeles and San Diego. And when I moved, it was like, okay, my storytelling has to keep going on. And with that, I helped to found the South Coast Storytellers Guild in Orange County, California. and met a marvelous group of storytellers, as well as we did events with storytelling groups in Los Angeles and all the way down to San Diego. So, because of being part of a guild and part of an organization, we would help one another become better in our work. We would coach one another and we would put together performances, and that way each storyteller could grow. And we would welcome just the story listeners as well, because we know if we don't have the story listeners, we don't have a show. So
Absolutely.
it became a lifelong experience, training throughout the area, helping teachers and docents at museums become better storytellers. So the teaching aspect has always been a part of my storytelling.
Most definitely. And I used to live in California too. I lived in
Oh,
Sherman Oaks. So,
yes.
yep, Sherman Oaks was not too shabby. So,
No, not at
y-
all.
yeah, expensive but not too shabby.
Oh, very expensive.
Indeed. Awesome. And so uh and you also we'll talk about the Telltellers of St. Augustine too, because you were talking about guilds and stuff and how whenever we storyteller build each other up. So we'll get to that in a little bit, and that's where we met. But um and in 2018 you moved to St. Augustine. And is that where you met the Telltellers of St. Augustine, and how did you meet those folks?
Well, knowing that I was going to be moving and starting over, now here I had a business that was constant in California. Now I'm moving 3,000 miles. Am I going to find my work? Well, you have to find your people. And when you find your people, you'll find your work. So I emailed the Telltellers of St. Augustine. They responded back with a welcoming email. And within a couple of weeks after I moved to St. Augustine, I started going to their meetings, which are on the second Monday of every month. And I found my people.
Indeed.
When you find your people, it's like, oh, great. So now I could start working again. I could start telling again because it's just part of my soul. I need to tell stories. And with them, I helped to organize and soon became the president
Wow.
of the organization and helped them to lead. And of course, when COVID hit, it was like, oh no, all of my in person work has dried up. But we found ways, like most storytelling groups, to go online, the wonderful experience of Zoom or other streaming services that still allowed us to have the community of storytelling and to reach out to our listeners.
Indeed. I feel your pain when COVID hit and I couldn't interview people in person anymore. So I had to use StreamYard to interview comedians from coast to coast. And so thank goodness for like folks like StreamYard and
Yes,
other web services like this to keep the train going.
absolutely. I think it was the saving grace. And here's what I noticed about that, or the silver lining: I went international
Yep. That's
because of these
awesome.
platforms.
Most definitely. And everyone has to adjust their times accordingly and uh but it
When
still
I
worked.
Yeah, I've been in India many times at schools and on various platforms in India. So, it's the 6 a.m. call.
Yep, indeed. I'm glad I didn't go international with mine because I couldn't have waken up at 6. I was like, I'd probably be going to bed at 6. So those late nights as and early like for comedians.
Oh,
Yep,
yes, especially with comedy, being the late night sets. Yeah, it, it would be a very awkward thing. But hey, 6 at night could be 6 in the morning somewhere else,
absolutely. It's
or
like
12 at night.
it's that old saying. It's 5 o'clock somewhere or something.
Yeah, yeah. But I
Indeed.
love that storytelling has prevailed. And that is the beautiful thing. Even though ideally storytelling comedy, it's a live audience. That's what feeds the storyteller, the comedian. And comedians are storytellers. That's how they do their work, and all other spoken word artists. So being in a little box and not being able to fully make that contact that you do, and to hear the giggles, the laughs, the seeing their faces, with limits on a service like a platform. But it prevailed. And now we found a new way to keep the international community of storytellers connected.
Most definitely. Indeed. That's for sure. I did have one guest that was from Poland, and
Mm.
I interviewed him that while he was in Poland, I think. So that was pretty interesting. So hopefully there's more international comedians that can interview, or more international storytellers this time, because I
Oh
re-
my, yes.
I retired from stand up comedy like in February. So yeah, we'll keep it going.
Yes.
Awesome.
Well,
And
I
so,
can certainly connect you with some wonderful storytellers that I met at the festival in Morocco.
oh, for sure, that'd be awesome. And I'd love to travel the world like you, and tell stories. That'd be awesome. And
Hmm.
so, speaking of traveling internationally, you performed in many states and 5 countries, and you presented at the internationally and on virtual conferences like you did in India, over Zoom and other streaming services, for 31 years. Or let's see, not 31 years, but you did storytelling concerts.
Right.
So, what's it like to be performing internationally and virtual and and in concerts?
Okay. It's wonderful to have that experience. My first experience internationally was in Scotland because my grandkids live there. So I would always make it a point to contact the Scottish storytellers. I performed at the National Storytelling Centre in Edinburgh and got to sit on a Celtic chair that was carved from the woods. And the power of sitting on that chair was like, whoa, I could feel that honor of storytelling because they honor storytellers. They actually have a storytelling building, where storytelling happens in Edinburgh on the Royal Mile. Then I performed in Vietnam 3 times because I was teaching at a conference, the California Kindergarten Conference. You never know who's in your audience. And the director of a school in Vietnam was there, and she invited me to come back to train her teachers in storytelling and to perform. So when I got to Saigon the first time, I get off the plane and we start driving into the area. There are banners all over the city
Wow, that's awesome.
with my name on it. Like, oh my gosh,
They went all out for you. That's pretty
they
neat.
did. You know how you have to go at least 50 miles out of where you live to become somewhat famous, almost famous. So that was some, and then I went to China because I was helping to open preschools, and I performed at 3 locations in China, Guangzhou, and in Shanghai, and also in a couple other cities there in China. I got to perform. So then, when the pandemic hit, I began to realize I would go on platforms, and the World Storytelling Cafe platform out of London, John Rowe is one of the directors, and Mike and Lucy Wood. So becoming part of that opened doors and windows because I met other storytellers. I got invited to the Montreal Storytellers. I got invited on Story Space. And so these invitations kept coming in as people see you on the virtual platforms. So I was able to be invited because they asked the storytellers who they already had seen perform on their platform to come to the Marrakesh International Storytelling Festival this past February. I was one of 5 American storytellers invited to join a group of 87 storytellers from all
Wow.
over the world. And let me tell you, it was an experience beyond all others because storytellers, sometimes we get lukewarm experiences, right? Where
Yep.
a storyteller, you just sit there and read a book. Like, oh, go. No, not at all. But people don't know it. The red carpet was laid out for the storytellers in Morocco. The purpose was to revive storytelling and make Morocco and Marrakesh the storytelling center of the world as it had been 1,000 years ago during the caravan routes. And there's wonderful Moroccan storytellers. The government rolled out the red carpet to us, the tourism board. We had hotel rooms provided for us for 7 days. I only had to pay my airfare to get there. Everything else, my food, other than a few meals because I wanted to taste all the good food there, and our transportation and transfers, our everything was there. We met at a big tent in the El Fana, Jama El Fana Square. Huge tent made by a tent maker.
Wow.
And our storytelling performances happened at the tent, in museums, and we all the storytellers went in small groups, and we went to over 100 schools to
Wow.
tell stories. And we held workshops throughout the city. There's actually a World Storytelling Cafe run by Lucy and Mike Wood. And we had so much fun winding through that crazy city. It was a perfect place to have a storytelling festival because when you walk through the souks, which are where the vendors are in Marrakesh and the Medina, the old section of the walled city, there are these 8 foot wide winding pathways with the vendors everywhere. And you can get lost, but it was just like a story path, winding and turning all around. So it was delightful. And then I've also performed a lot in India and been a part of the Early Childhood Development Forum, giving workshops there virtually. What I loved about everywhere that I've gone, both virtually and in the physical space, is storytellers are honored. And when I was there with 87 fabulous, amazing, record breaking storytellers honored in their own countries, storytellers, there was no ego.
Wow.
All storytellers were equal in that way at the Storytelling Festival in Morocco. They will have another one in 2 years. In 2025 will be the next one that will be held there. But to be so honored, it took me a while to come down. We were celebrities, so it took me a while. I mean, we had these amazing events the first night. We were greeted at a kasbah, which is a castle, with men on camels, dressed in white robes, chanting and drumming, and we danced to the music, and we had other galas in our honor. So
That's
being a storyteller is an honorable tradition everywhere. We need to elevate storytelling in our communities.
most definitely. So you definitely literally rocked the Casbah while you were out there.
Yes.
So, that's awesome.
And we had a parade through the Medina, and everybody dressed in costumes from their countries to the beat of music, and a parade of storytellers. It was just like so much fun.
Indeed. Like when I was in Orlando, like a dragonfly landed on my shoulder because they were trying to catch it the whole night, and it just landed on me, and someone caught it and then released it into the world. And I was like looking up what it meant, and it's a new transition to a different area in life, and so it's like I guess I made the right choice to leave stand up to go into storytelling because it was just an easy transition. So
Well,
I can't wait to go and try some more stuff.
you are there, you have the pattern. One thing that you are so lucky to have, which not everybody has, is you don't have the fear of being in front of an audience. Now, we,
Indeed.
we all get sweaty. We all get a little nervous no matter how many years we've been performing, and that's a good thing. But I help people to overcome that fear so they can go on the stage and tell their stories, especially those deep personal stories, that need to be told because the audience the audience identifies with those personal stories, and the empathy that you create with the audience when you tell your story, whether it's the joy of comedy in your story, the many unexpected things that happen in our lives, or the hero's tale where we overcome issues in our lives and have a transformation in our lives. So these stories, the personal stories, I mostly tell the folk tales, the fairy tales, the fables, but I also tell personal stories and I write music to go with some of my stories. But those personal stories can be very powerful when they're told well and when they're told in a way, you know, the audience is either laughing with you, crying with you, or surprised, you know.
Indeed. I didn't get anyone to cry last night, but they were definitely laughing, and it was quite a journey. I can't wait to throw it on YouTube, and so hopefully it doesn't get taken down because the theme was the birds and the bees, and so
Oh,
and it
a
and it
little more
drank.
adult audience.
Yeah. And some people talked about like their first loves and stuff, but then I just had to take it to Bangkok, Thailand when I went in 2006. So it's pretty wild times.
I bet it was.
Indeed.
But those stories in the proper setting
Yep.
are, are well accepted, and there's an audience for all different kinds of stories, like the moth, you know, a slam, and where it's the rules are not quite the same as a family centered audience, you know.
Indeed.
And storytelling festivals, Sarah, I encourage you to find out about some of those and start performing on some of the virtual platforms, which will lead you into being in front of the people who have festivals and then invitations. So the only thing, you know, unless you're a featured teller at some of the festivals, there's not always pay.
Ah, yeah.
And when you have to pay for travel, well, that could add up. There's just so much you can write off on income tax, right? For your business. But start with as many local, I would say, you know, within 150, 200 miles, with drivable distance that you're willing to go for the actual in person festivals. Like St. Simon's has a festival, Georgia has some, Brunswick. There's different festivals within our area. And of course, our Florida Storytelling Festival, I'm on the board of directors, which is on the last weekend of January, Mount Dora, Florida. So there's a place to try your wings. We have the slam, we have ghost stories. The late night slam, it's okay to have more adult themes. Most of the things on our stage, though, are family friendly. And you get a chance, we have open mic kind of experiences at the festival. And then we also do story swaps. So you can just come and be part of the story swap at the festival. So that's where you start to get your name out in the storytelling world. Go local, but then find out how you can start being on the virtual. And I can help you with that, the virtual platforms. The National Storytelling Network is a good place to get connected with other storytelling groups. They have a directory of other storytelling festivals throughout the country. And then I would highly recommend World Storytelling Cafe, and get on there, worldstorytellingcafe.com, and check in with John Rowe and find out when you can do events and start getting your international name out there.
Most definitely, indeed, and that's what I love about. I have tea festivals myself, and so I made sure that storytelling is part of the whole experience. And my show is called Loose Leaf, a storytelling show, and I named it Loose Leaf because it started off in a coffee shop in downtown Pueblo, Colorado, and then I took it to Daytona, and then now we get to perform it on that Fringe, so that's an international festival. So yep. I think they're gonna be well, I did the 30th one, so I think it's like the 33rd annual one. So it's the oldest fringe in the states. So it's pretty awesome.
Wow, you
Yep.
are awesome.
I can't
Wow.
wait to have you on that one because it's gonna be an amazing time for
I
sure.
am so looking forward. It was like such an honor. to be invited. When you start over in a new state, it's hard because, like back in California, like well, in my own world, everybody knew me, and so I had so many connections. And here in Florida, with the interruption of the pandemic, I'm really just this year, it's starting to be back on track and being out there. I even am performing at a Chick-fil-A.
Wow, that's pretty neat.
Oh, it's not that, right? I'm doing story times for the families. So it's opening up the world. And I also perform as Mrs. Sunshine Santa Claus. So at the holiday time, Mrs. Sunshine Santa Claus goes out and tells stories.
That's awesome. And the best thing about Florida is like there's no snow to stop you to get anywhere.
No, you don't have that. But I'm so grateful to have connected with you, Sarah, and through my friend Kathy Canary, we were able to meet and at the celebration this past year held by the Telltellers, and it has always been delightful to follow you, to see you on Instagram, and to connect with all the marvelous things you're doing in your performance-based work.
Indeed. I'm so glad I got to bring you on board and to like and get you into the fringe audience, and it's gonna be all the wild times. And I forgot to ask you, like, how did you get on the board of directors for the Florida Storytelling Association and the Telltellers of St. Augustine?
Hmm? Well, beware who you talk to, and beware to what you say yes to.
Indeed.
So the first year I went to this, I was actually selected as a new member to the Telltellers. The Florida Storytelling Association gives out a complimentary welcome pass for new members of the storytelling associations throughout the state. So I was lucky enough to receive that. And because of that, I got to go to the festival, and I performed at the Fringe there the first
Nice.
time. So when I was walking around talking to people, because I love to talk, somebody said, "Well, why don't you join on the board? We have an opening." And so I said, "Why not? Because I don't know anybody in Florida. This is going to be a great way to learn about this festival and to also meet the storytellers in the state." And I said, "Yes." And then I became the director of the Youthful Voices. So for the past 4 years, I have trained children to perform at the festival. And we send an all call out for videos in November. And children throughout the state can apply. And we choose 6 children to come and perform at the festival on the Saturday night. And they get a scholarship. Telltellers. How did I get a Telltellers? Well, I started going to the meetings, and like every group, new blood. Let's bring
Indeed.
her in.
Indeed.
Grab her. She's got lots of experience. So, and I was happy to serve as first, fortunately, vice president, so I could get to know the group and the culture of the group. And then they voted me in as president. So we're a very small group of about 30 people and always wanting to grow. So we are trying to reach out to younger audiences and bring in and train in our community. We've got Flagler College here, like college students, and trying to open our world to other people, because in storytelling groups, traditionally people are kind of aging a little more. We're moving into, we've been around like we're like 43 years, so we want to bring new blood and introduce people into the group to have people realize, oh my gosh, I've got a place as a storyteller in my community.
Indeed. I need to make it out more because I live close by, but it's just that the stand up just took up most of my
Yeah.
days, and it causes me to sleep in because I got the late nights. So,
Well, of course.
but
Yeah.
now that I can finally do it, I'm usually laser focused, and so like I'll be more involved with the telltellers and all that good stuff.
Well, we're happy to have you when we can. There's a wonderful festival coming up April 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, the Lullaby of the Rivers
Oh,
Festival in Villano Beach. And it's going to be music and storytelling on Saturday and Sunday. It'll be storytelling there. So if you have a chance to pop into that festival, it would be fun to have you come. If you We still have room on the stage if you want to come. That needs to be family friendly, but
Okay,
stories. But if you ever have that opportunity, I can send you the information.
I would love that, and I'll promise to keep it family friendly because I've done a clean set before in stand up, so and I don't cuss in my stories, so either whether it's dirty or clean, so it's gonna be an
Yeah.
easy transition.
Yeah, that's the thing. We have, as storytellers and performers, we have to know our audience before we go on stage, and the parameters of the audience, so that we don't, we want to elevate our things. So when we know our audience, we know the appropriate time to insert a more adult theme, and we know the appropriate time to keep it kind of family friendly, so we don't cause an issue with people viewing storytelling in a way that would be unkind, or a way that they will be turned off from it. There's an appropriate time for all kinds of stories. And so that's why I always tell people I train, know your audience. And when the person who hires you, you always ask, tell me about the audience. So you go in there clear. And that way, I always have 5 or 6 stories ready in my head, so that when I go in and I look at the audience, that's when I choose my stories sometimes, unless it's a themed event. And it's like you have to know your audience, and where you can push the envelope a little bit, because you can still tell a slightly spicy story, but it's all about the language you use and the images, because storytellers paint pictures with their words. The images that you provoke in people. It's the same as when you tell a scary story. Okay. Some people will freak out that, oh my gosh, that was so morbid, or this or that. And well, it's a ghost story concert. What did you expect?
Indeed, most definitely. And yeah, like you said, like you gotta know your audience, and like a lot of comedians, they don't like to watch other comedians perform for some strange reason. They just go out in the back and smoke a cigarette or whatever. And I'm just always front row paying attention how to not only to like the people's jokes on stage, but how the crowd reacts. And so if
Right.
I know that there's clean material hits, then I'm gonna do my clean set. But if I know the dirty material hits, I'm gonna go all in on my dirty set. So
You
you
are
gotta,
very wise.
yeah. Thank you, thank you. So definitely read the room, just like a story. You gotta read the room. So yeah. So I'm glad
That
that
is the key to performing.
indeed, definitely. I'm glad stand up taught me that, or else I would have never, But now I can carry it with me as a storyteller. So, and I'm glad you told me about reading the room and knowing your audience, because it'd be really awkward to share a story that had nothing to do with the theme or anything like that. Um, so yep, you've in 2021 post pan well, for some are we're still in the pandemic, and but for
Mhm.
Florida we just stopped at 4 months for some reason. It's Florida for you.
Great
Uh,
Florida.
yeah. So you were part of the storytelling of the heart of the curriculum of ECDF. What does ECDF stand for?
Early Childhood Development Forum in India, and it's run by Dr. Vasavi, who is an early childhood specialist. So again, I put myself out there, and they invited me to be on a storytelling event first. So I was on that event. Then after that, that led, well, can you teach and workshops? Sure. So I taught workshops. Can you write articles for our publication? Yes, I can write articles for your publication. Can you be a judge for a storytelling contest? So this primarily is international early childhood teachers who come onto this forum. And so I got connected with all these brilliant men and women around the world who are early childhood specialists. And of course, storytelling, the heart of the curriculum in my classroom, Storytelling was the way, and art, because I'm an art teacher too. Storytelling and art is how I taught. So these children learned science, math, English, literacy, all under the veil of storytelling. And they became little storytellers and artists and performed on the stage. So it's beautiful. My work as a storytelling coach for children is probably something that I hold dear to my heart. To help children find their voice at a young age, to overcome their fear of public speaking, and to do it in a fun story format. I've worked with autistic children, Asperger's, and they finding their path through storytelling, to see them get up on the stage, to be in a position to be accepted by their peers for their talents instead of being thought of as different. It was very heartwarming to guide those children to be up on the stage.
Most definitely. Indeed, I'm glad you're teaching the children to do public speaking, because it's rough even for adults. So,
Mm-hmm.
like the stage fright is real, even up to for some people. I've seen people shake and have the jitters on stage, and
Mm-hmm.
do like snap, like move with their fingers, and it's
Yeah.
just very nervous for some folks, but for others, it's just a piece of cake.
Yeah, I was a ham at an early age and loved being anywhere I could attract an audience.
Indeed. I know the feeling for sure. Like I used to talk, like we had these competitions of talking about each other's moms when I was in middle school, and so everyone would like circle around us to see what we talk say about each other's moms. I'm like, I'm glad that lasted in middle school when I was a kid. It doesn't carry around now. I mean, there was a show on MTV, of course, but oh man, I'm glad it's no longer popular. So.
Yo, mama, huh?
Yep, absolutely. It's a fun time, but I'm glad that was. I'm glad it made everyone laugh and have break the ice of just having fun during lunch. And so even though if the food was bad, at least there was a show. So
Well, middle school is such a harrowing time for many people. So it's nice that you could bust it with comedy and get your comedic start there.
oh yeah, most definitely. And looking back, it's like, wow, that's actually where I did get my comedy going, and getting to see Eddie Murphy on DVD on Raw and Delirious, and Richard Pryor on the Sunset Strip. It's like these are really nice stories, and they combine it into 1 hour, and I'm like, this is fantastic. So they were
Yeah.
just more than just jokes. It's fantastic. I loved it.
Oh, well, it fed your creative spirits too and lifted you up in this time of your life. So I think a lot of us, the class clowns, you get started at school.
Absolutely. On the buses everywhere, the world is your stage, so it's awesome. So you were also a speaker at the Sphere of Influence Forum, based out in India, and what was like the food, like the atmosphere, the environment, and all that good stuff.
Okay, I that was a virtual event, so I didn't get to go to
Oh,
India on that one. But I want to go. I'm hoping that by being on some of these platforms, like the World Storytelling Cafe led me to Morocco, I'm hoping that I will, be able to get to India soon. So no, it wasn't that exciting in the way of sensory experience there. But being with all these brilliant people from all over the world on the sphere of influence, we each gave presentations virtually. So when you put yourself out there on the virtual platforms, you never know what doors and windows will open for you as a performer and as an educator for me. So that could be doors and windows. So I am hoping to get to India in the near future.
I hope so too. Most definitely. I'll definitely use do as you said, and just be a storyteller on when I can't make it in person. I'll do it over StreamYard or all the
Mhm.
other services, because um especially in Florida, because like it's such a drive to get to places. And indeed, I have one tonight in Flagler Beach. They're
Oh,
just
would you?
starting a new one at Sunbros Cafe, so that's pretty exciting.
I saw you post that. Yeah.
Indeed. So I'll be there, and it's pretty neat. And I don't know, we'll see where else this storytelling thing. So I'm pretty excited. So
Well, that is my advice to anyone who is just getting started is find out what's happening in your community. There are places where you can go. I mean, service clubs, you can go on that circuit, and Rotary and stuff and do short stories of interest, maybe about your community. Actually, the Council of Aging, believe it or not, they're wonderful here in this state. And to go and do some stories for, create a fun theme. And they have their beautiful facilities where you can go. I've also done some things with assisted living, and there's plenty of those in Florida.
wow,
And they have various levels of care. Your normal assisted living people who are just there, they're pretty together. They love having things, and there is some pay in some of them, that you can go and be paid to do a little half-hour set, and they need to laugh. They have stories to tell. They have memories of being that kid in middle school telling stories at lunch. So that's an opportunity to be involved with the seniors also. And depending on what I've done some work as Mrs. Santa Claus in memory care, and that is a whole different thing. Whereas music was much more appropriate with them than telling stories due to the memory care issues. But there's a lot of senior communities also where a storyteller can be valued for their service. And so I would recommend you can try some of that too, because they're adults and it could be a little fun to have adult themes with the seniors.
indeed, especially in the villages. You know
Oh,
how
yeah.
they are. Yeah.
They have a reputation there.
Indeed. Oh man, and that's what I love about storytelling, because like the places you can take storytelling, you can't take in stand up, because no one wants to hear those naughty jokes on stage when they're trying to watch a football game. So, and similarly to stand up, like we rarely get paid. We get like sometimes we get chicken wings as our payment, and it's like, oh man, like chicken wings don't put gas in our tanks. So
They don't. And you know what? You bring up a very important thing. And yes, when we're just getting started, and yes, when we're trying to get our name out there, like you say, you go on the chicken wing circuit, and I've been on the free lunch circuit too. Um, but at some point, we have to look at this, and people will say, oh, like for the tale tellers, well, you're a nonprofit organization. I said, but our storytellers are not nonprofit. So we protect so that there's at least a stipend to cover the gas when we can get it. But I usually do not go out the door for anything less than $150 to $250, depending on the client, depending on the situation. I also hold, I've got my clearances, fingerprint, if I go into schools or places with children, and I have my performer's insurance. By the time you have a website, you have insurance, you add these things. I mean, those alone can be $2,000 a year of business expenses and your own self promotion. So, a storyteller, a professional storyteller, it's your business. And you have to let people know. Now, when you're getting started, you want to get out there and doing these things out in the community. I always say, do some of those freebies because somebody in the audience is going to say, I want you at my event.
indeed.
And you hold yourself professionally. I have my invoices all done, letterhead done. So when I get requests, I can do that. There's also what you might put yourself on is Gig Salad. And on Gig Salad, it becomes like your own little web page there. They have a free version, which is fine, and it gets you out there. And then they have a paid version, or you can pay for, if you just want to promote yourself for 3 months, you can pay the fee just for 3 months to get your name out there. And that I would recommend because they do corporate events, all kinds of things. You make your own little website and decide where you want to have your information pushed out to. and it's very professional. People contact you through Gig Salad. So I just started using them last year for Mrs. Santa. So that would be my recommendation for anyone who wants to get started. But honor your work and your experience. You are worth some kind of stipend, okay? At least $50, to cover your gas in the local area, which is minimal, okay?
Yep.
But when you start seeing yourself as a professional performer, then others will see that too. You decide who you're going to do it free for
Yep.
and what benefit it's going to be. But when you are a storyteller, you want to realize that this is my living. And like you said, I have to pay my gas. And when you have a 9 o'clock event, well, I have to leave my house at 7:30.
Yep.
And I've prepared hours to do this event and my
Indeed.
material. So yes, I know in the comedy and in many performance things, they just want you to get in there. Hey, it's exposure. Well, it is. And it is exposure, but at some point you have to value yourself enough to say, I'm charging it. You look at clowns and magicians that go out for birthday parties. A lot of people do the birthday party circuit. Um, they're going out for 250 or more. DJs, think of what they're getting paid for. And we are worthy. We are worthy to be paid for our work.
Most definitely. And storytelling is like been around since centuries.
Oh
So,
my gosh, yes, it's ancient.
yep. And we
And
deserve to get paid like royalty.
you do. And don't ever think less of yourself. This is my advice for anyone going into it. Don't think less of yourself. Elevate yourself. But going with that means you have to carry yourself in a professional way. You send out invoices, you answer your emails, you connect with people, and always have your list of questions before you accept a performance of what exactly are you walking into. You're in charge when you put yourself out there acting like a professional with a business acumen. Then they will realize, oh, this isn't a pushover. This isn't somebody who just does this for fun. You are the professional that you are.
That's what I needed to do when I was a stand up because like I did wanted to get my name out there, and so I just kept on doing free shows. And so you gotta know your worth, so that way they can pay you that minimum of yours.
Yes. And, maybe everybody gets a $25 pot for being on the stage that night. Okay, that's fine. And um, a cut of the sales that whatever, however the stage is going to work it. So some of my online events, I've been paid, and you have the option of getting paid or donating back to the group. And that's your choice, to do that. So yes, name your price. When you're starting out, well, you might keep it a little bit lower just to start getting events. And then as you get um, more information on your performer's resume, then you can start upping what you charge, because yes, and if you get published, well, then you can up your price because you're an author also.
Absolutely, indeed. And so I'm glad like Fringe and stuff is like giving us a platform and giving us a stipend, and I can share
Yeah,
the wealth with all the performers. And
thank you.
so it's a beautiful thing, and that's why I love Fringe so much, is like they're quite supportive and stuff. And and so you talked about online, and we're online, and you provide education, and you do virtual coaching on stories-tellingcourses.com and on
Mhm.
your YouTube channel. And so what was it like to start up your own website and do your own YouTube channel?
Okay, well, I had a very simple little one-page website for many years. But then, the pandemic spurred me on. So here's what I did during the first months of COVID. I took classes, and Sue B. Zimmerman the Instagram expert, offers a lot of free, wonderful YouTube videos to tell you how to put yourself out on Instagram. And so I took social media classes, and I also learned about YouTube, and I'm nowhere near the polished hoo ha, but I'm learning all the time. My website, I went and researched how I needed to do that and took some courses. And I went with a company called Course Cat so that I could have the platform. And I literally tore my hair out for like 3 months doing this all on my own. Some people would have taken the easy route and hired someone to put up their website. No, I took the classes and I did it with support of Course Cats. And they were wonderful, helping me to get my website up. And on that, how to upload your courses. Another platform where you can do, which is free, is Thinkific. And you can put a course up there, on how to train people. So I also offer the virtual coaching so that if someone wants to meet with me and polish a story or learn aspects, they can meet with me on an hourly rate, and I can help them to become a more polished presenter. They can run it by me, I give it feedback, and then they're ready to go, hopefully through that way. And I also meet in person locally with people to coach them to be a better performer and a public speaker. So it was a process of 6 to 9 months, and I'm constantly going in and refining. But there are some wonderful people out there who gives free advice on Instagram and other platforms, even LinkedIn. They offer free workshops, and then of course they might want to have you signed up for coaching experience. And I did hire a coach because I wanted to make sure I was doing some of these things online presence correctly with my little bit of experience of having to jump from live to online. So yes, it cost me some money, but I invested in myself and my business, and it's been paying off. I have voiceover work now. I tell stories on an online platform called Magic Polygon. It's an app, and I tell the stories on that app and get paid to do it. So it's very unique when you find out. The more you research, the more you find out. And when you're on social media, it is social media. You reach out and DM those people who you think your talent might work with them. You don't give them the hard sell. It's just, hey, great to meet you. I think we have a lot in common. Here's what I do. Can you tell me more about your business? And I've been on like, I don't know, 20 podcasts too. So podcast is another place to get your name out there. So thank you for putting me on your platform.
You're welcome, Deborah. I'm glad you're my guest, my first guest. So that's pretty awesome. And so and I can tell by your energy, and that's why I picked you like of everyone that I've met in life so far. It's like you're willing to travel, you're willing to get your name out
Mhm.
there, and you and the world is your stage, and so you travel from coast to coast to international. And like
Mhm.
you are the one of the perfect storytellers for Fringe, and I'm like, I'm taking you with me. So
Oh, well, I'm
indeed,
happy to make that association with you, Sarah, because I've seen you perform, and you have an honesty and authenticness about your performance. And that's something we need to remember. We don't want to be, like you said, you don't want to be like another comedian. You might find out what works for them and try out material in that way. But each storyteller has their unique delivery, their unique style. And you want to honor that. You cannot be an imposter.
right.
You have to be what's true to yourself.
Indeed, and along my journey, I've noticed how like some comedians are influenced by other comedians and their mannerisms, and you can tell, oh, that's Kevin Hart. He's trying to be Kevin Hart, or that's he's trying to be Dave Chappelle. And it's like
Right.
you got to find your own voice, and people can tell that when you're lying. So all of my jokes have like a lot of truth to them, but I sprinkle a little bit of embellishment just to make it juicy, and so it's
Ah,
you got
but
to. But
that
now I
is
can
the
finally tell the
art.
truth. Yeah.
That's the art, to put that embellishment in, put your own spin on it.
Yep.
That is the art of it. Because I did a fun thing with Michael McCarty, who's a marvelous storyteller in Los Angeles. He is wild on the stage, awesome, leaps, jumps, wild man. He and I did a training at the Bowers Museum in Orange County. We told a story side by side. In other words, he told his version of the story, and it's a great African folk tale, and it's called Talking Got Me Here. And then I told my version, and then we had the docents compare and contrast how the delivery was and how it changed their view of the story. So it was a marvelous exercise of, being able to do those two. It'd be like one comedian tell a joke and the other one tell the joke side by side, and their delivery, their timing will be a totally changed story.
Awesome. That's good stuff. And I love that you're driven by personal philosophy and you provide valuable educational experiences and performances for children and adults. And it's in your bio, and you were able to take around the world and back again. That's just such an you inspire me, and so
Oh,
I'm so
thanks.
glad that you were part of my storytelling life, like in the beginning. So
It's in the beginning, and I am here for you, Sarah. I am here for you to help you step into this. You've already got so much experience. I think it will be an easy. I think of the butterfly in the cocoon. The transformation of becoming that butterfly of storytelling. That you will easily transfer into it and develop your personal stories and/or try a few fun folk tales, because my stories find me. If they're not already what I've already walked through in my personal life, my stories find me and I research them. And when something, I prefer like naughty children's stories or funny stories that have a little twist to it. And then I also tell some very deeply moving stories. But when you find like fables, you could have so much fun with fables, tricking them out, creating those characters. Fables are a nice beginning because they're short stories, and but you look at 3 paragraphs and that could become 7 minutes of telling.
indeed, most definitely. And I have to give a special shout out to Carla Wagner of the Corazon Cinema and Cafe in St. Augustine when it was around. Because without her, I wouldn't have had the Confessions of the Corazon. And I think I'm definitely dedicating this whole interview series
Aw.
to her because she gave us a platform from whether it
Mhm.
was that's where I met most of the tale tellers from Margaret Kaler to Robin and her husband, Robin
Mhm.
Moynihan,
Yeah,
Mahonen, and
Ed and Robin. Uh-huh.
yep, Ed and Robin, and so many more storytellers. And it's like, um, and so I can't wait to have them as my future guests. And which reminds me, uh, like, uh, which storytellers would you like for me to interview? Like, you nominate them, and I'll reach
Oh
out
my
to
gosh,
them.
I get to nominate someone.
Yep, 5 of
I
them from here to Morocco that you've met.
Oh, here to Morocco. Well, I probably would have to send you the list,
Okay,
but offhand, featuring like a local or a, let's start with a Florida storyteller maybe,
okay,
and
perfect.
then I will send you the list of the other ones I would highly recommend that they would enjoy being on that platform too. But one of the people I really admire and their style of telling is Pat Neese. She's a Florida storyteller who lives in the Panhandle. She is wickedly funny and tells the craziest stories and has such an ebullient personality. Another one is Linda Schuyler Ford, is someone I would recommend. And David Fussell from the Tale Tellers, that is a Florida cracker boy. And he tells such heartwarming stories of growing up. And then he has some true Florida history tales, which is another whole thing, a type of style of telling. I could go on and on about all my storytellers in the Tale Tellers group too. And there are other groups too up in the Jacksonville area that I just met, and I don't have all their names yet, but these are some people I would initially recommend. Then I could send you a list of people. And if you go on the World Storytelling Cafe website and you look at the festival, there will be a whole list of all the 87 storytellers there, as well as all the storytellers who have performed on that site. But because I now know some of them personally, oh, another one, David Thompson. He was my best friend in Marrakesh. And David is a teller from Texas. So he is just a fun teller.
Fantastic. And I'll definitely look forward to the list and everything. I can't wait to interview David Fussell though, and that's where we met. It was at the Core Zone, and so I can't wait. He's such a joy to talk to. Even though he runs the light sometimes, I still love him. So, indeed,
You need to give him a little bit of a time limit sometimes. We love him.
indeed, most of he has stories for days, even
Oh,
years
yes,
probably.
he
So,
does.
indeed. And so, Deborah, I have your YouTube, your Facebook, your Meta, your LinkedIn, and your Instagram handle on the link tree in the description box below.
Thank
So
you.
please definitely like, follow, subscribe, rate, etc. On Deborah's as well as mine. And is there any final word you'd like to give to the audience at home, Deborah?
Well, all I say is storytelling has been the most fun ride of my life. And I've met the most wonderful, genuine people in the storytelling community. So when you have a chance to see a storytelling event in your community, don't say, oh, they're just going to read books. No, go because you're going to have a beautiful, ethereal experience. So do it.
Most definitely do it. Like Nike says, just do it. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Awesome. So Deborah, thank you so much for being my guest on Storytellers and Naysayers, the very first episode, and I can't wait to
Woo!
reach out to all those recommendations and all that good stuff, and have them as honored guests because I want to bring more joy and spotlight to the storytellers
Well,
around the world.
I applaud you for going on this new venture and let me know how we can support you and I can support you in your things. And I will be posting on my websites when this is up and running. So let's be collaborators in getting the word of storytelling out.
I would love that, and I will definitely see you at Fringe. And as soon as I get two more storytellers from the local area of Orlando, I'll put the flyer out and send you a flyer, and we'll promote it on social media. It's gonna be a fun Fringe. I can't wait to be on stage with you once again.
Woo! Yes.
Awesome. Be well, everyone. Take care of each other, and we'll see you on the next episode of Storytellers and Naysayers.